the top of the class on a roll, and it's time to run it up, yeah, you know. Maxed out, put the pedal to the floor. Ayy, on the road, here we go. Yeah, we winning by a landslide. Never see me coming on my landmine. Yeah, I ain't taking orders in command like. Yeah, you about to see me on demand like. You know on demand. If you ain't know, you about to understand. Yeah, I got the team by my side, right hand. Yeah, take it to a string, you ain't seen it like that. Yeah, and it's the dream, and we coming for the bag.
All right, welcome to the Fantasy Six Pack 2023 Fantasy Football Team Previews. My name is Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. With me to do the Dallas Cowboys is Jordan Schultz. What's up, man?
Oh, man, not too much. Just ready to talk about the best division in football. I've been looking forward to this like all week or all last week, I guess.
Good stuff. All right, well, before we jump into things, want to remind everybody to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button on the video, leave those comments. We appreciate it. And, of course, go over to FantasySixPack.net/plans and become an all-access member where you're going to get access to our fantasy football draft cheat sheet, our projections, our DFS stuff, our Discord, where you get to ask us, including and everybody else that we have over at Fantasy Six Pack, your custom league questions so you can dominate your leagues. There's a whole lot more with it as well, but make sure you go over there and become a member today. Let's jump in here, man, and do this preview, man.
Let's do it.
We are starting off here with, of course, the Dallas Cowboys and, of course, the quarterbacks, led by Mr. Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush, and then Will Greer rounds out the quarterback room there. So, the big question here with Dak, right, is, he had that one, like, just utterly amazing year. And, look, he's a good, steady quarterback. I feel like he's fairly safe in fantasy. The question now is what's going to happen with him in now a Mike McCarthy-led offense, no longer Kellen Moore, who really, I think, kind of did help him and this entire offense out. Kellen Moore is a very smart guy. Mike McCarthy has been
questionable
many times. So, yeah. What's your thoughts there on Dak in this new look offense for 2023?
Yeah, so first thing, I totally agree that I think Kellen Moore definitely brought out more in Dak. I grew up about 40 minutes from Boise, so I watched all 4 years of Kellen Moore up close and personal in Boise State. And like, it's crazy. You go back and like look at the stats he put up and then realize that most of the games he only played 3 quarters because they were waxing everybody like 40 points. And it's just like, man, like for somebody who was not like the most physically gifted guy, like I've never seen somebody shred defenses. And so I'm not surprised that he's been able to transition in as a coordinator and just immediately translate to the guys on the field there. I am bummed about all of the Cowboys this year in terms of fantasy, like down a little bit from last year, just because, I mean, it's been a while since we've seen McCarthy call plays. And the last time I feel like his offense was more of just like, hey, Aaron Rodgers, here's like a general play, now go and save me kind of type thing. So I'm hoping that, a couple of years off, a couple of years stepping back, I'm hopefully that like will change things a little bit. Talking about Dak, so in each of the last 2 games that he played 16 seasons with Kellen Moore, he had over 4,400 yards and 30 touchdowns. So, I mean, when he's healthy on the field, he puts up production. That being said, I don't know if he has a ceiling that much higher than that this year, unless McCarthy has just completely changed his ways since he was calling plays in Green Bay. Back last year, of course, broke his hand, came back in, still was able to average over 17 games, would have been the quarterback 9 for fantasy purposes. But, I mean, the big question here is just how big of that loss of Kellen Moore is it going to be? I think that the Chargers are going to have a real good year this year with him calling plays. And then the other thing that's confusing to me is, sorry if I'm rambling here, but Mike McCarthy all year long said, we want to run the ball this offseason. Doesn't do us any good to put up all these points if we're not stopping them. We want to run the ball. But then you kind of look at the moves they've made this offseason, and that's not what it tells me. They let Zeke go and replaced him with like Ronald Jones and Deuce Vaughn, little 5'5" gadget back, and then traded for Brandin Cooks, and then Michael Gallup another year back from the ACL. So I don't know. I'm not feeling optimistic just on the fact that coach is saying one thing out of the mouth, but then the GMs are doing something completely different. Yeah. I'm worried that this is going to be a little bit of a disappointment year for Dallas.
Okay. Coach speak is it's always interesting to listen to at this time of the year. Yeah, I'm indifferent with Dak. I've actually got him ranked QB9 right now. I could easily put him like QB13. Like it's that kind of range where it's just sort of like, but because he's sort of safe-ish, QB9 kind of feels like where he's going to fall in. And I was actually looking at his points per game production, and this is on Fantasy Pros, so I don't know exactly what their points per yardage is, but he actually looks like he would have finished like, if you get rid of like the one game from
Right.
Davis Webb, or, the one game from Sam Howell, it looks like he would have finished like QB 13-ish on points per game there.
Mm-hmm.
It's at just under, where is he? 17.8. So he's under Trevor Lawrence, who had 17.9, Kirk at 18, Tua had 18.4, kind of those guys. I don't know, man. Like, I feel like he's gonna get his, like, and the other thing is, like, this division, man, I just feel like it's tough. But there's gonna be some high scoring games, man. They're gonna have to score points, so that's in his favor to be able to be a fantasy producer. But let's get over to that running back room that you alluded to, and led by Tony Pollard. Now that there's no Zeke, Malik Davis, Deuce Vaughn, the little guy, Ronald Jones, and Rico Dowdell. Rounding out the room here. Look, Tony Pollard's coming off the injury. Now with no Zeke, I mean, what is the real, hope that we can have, a real expectation that we can have for Tony Pollard now that he really is the dude?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest hope for me is just that, like, they don't feed him 25 touches a game, just because I don't think he's going to hold up if you do that. Like you saw towards the end of the year last year. And granted, I mean, the broken leg, that's kind of a fluky thing, just having somebody fall on you like that. But you saw towards the end of the year, he kind of started to slow down a little bit those last few weeks. Like, he was still putting up, I want to say, like 80 or 90 all-purpose yards a game. So it wasn't like he was bottled up or anything. But compared to early in the year when he was fresh and he had like the crazy explosiveness, looked like the quickest player on the field pretty much every game. I think you kind of need to stick more into that early season role where you had that kind of closer to 60-40% Zeke, split with Zeke. So that being said, we need somebody in this backup group to kind of step up and be that guy. I'm not sure we have that person here. Malik Davis, good story, but I believe he was like an undrafted rookie that we just picked up from the practice squad last year. I've said before, if Deuce Vaughn was just like 5'9", 200 pounds, he's a top 3 pick in those fantasy class. But he's not, he's 5'5", like 180 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Ronald Jones at this point is probably the best bet to play that Zeke role. And even then, I'm not sure that really interests me for fantasy. I think your best bet if you're picking someone behind him here is either Deuce Vaughn or Malik Davis. And ideally, you have a taxi squad that you can throw first and second year players on and just kind of throw them both there and just kind of wait and see what happens. If you have Pollard, of course, I think it'd be worth it to grab both of these guys just because, coming off a broken leg as a running back, like he should be okay, but it wouldn't be like the craziest thing if he lost a step after that. And again, you just look at this room. This doesn't look like a running back room of a team that wants to emphasize running the ball. Like, at least that's not what I see when I look at this group.
No, I totally agree. I'm a big fan of Pollard. I've got him ranked a little bit ahead of where his ADP is right now. I've got him actually at running back 9.5 PPR. Mm-hmm. You love the yards per carry last year at 5.2. He can catch the ball. He's explosive, in the open field. The guy's really fast. And again, like you said, like there's just really nobody there to you feel like is going to challenge him. Of course, they're going to run these guys around. Mm-hmm. And, I feel like Ronald Jones probably really is the guy that, like you said, could kind of, at least take some short yardage stuff. He has shown flashes. He's going to be probably the guy that they lean on a little early. Right now, the depth chart has it kind of flip-flopped. It is what it is. We'll see how it really lands. We record these in early June, so we're going to see a lot of things change. But Tony Pollard is absolutely the guy, and unless we see something in camp or preseason where that leg really starts limiting him, I feel like we're actually going to start seeing his ADP creep up a little bit more as the season gets closer, just because it feels like Tony Pollard really could be one of those like lone bell cow guys, like very few, and that's huge. So I really do like Pollard going forward. So over here to the receiving room, led by CeeDee Lamb, of course, the aforementioned Brandin Cooks. Michael Gallup is there still, Jalen Tolbert, and a couple other guys here to round out the room. Nothing exciting there at the end there. So let's see here. Yeah, looking at this receiving room, I mean, CeeDee Lamb is I think everybody likes his talent. I think it's just a matter of, can he put it all together in a full season? He had some up and downs last year. There was a stretch of games where it just wasn't great for him. Can he put it all together? And then, to kind of back up on that, like, is Brandin Cooks, kind of being underrated in drafts, coming into this year, now that he's got a pretty good quarterback again finally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so for CeeDee, I'm actually really high on him this year. I mean, last year only played 12 games with Dak and had over 1,300 yards and 9 touchdowns. He did kind of have that rough stretch, but I believe like at least part of those games were Cooper Rush when he was in there. So the whole offense was kind of down a little bit on those. So overall, I mean, I actually think CeeDee could come close to what he did last year and even improve on that a little bit this year. When it comes to Cooks and Gallup, that's where I think it gets a little bit interesting. I feel like I like both of these guys better in a best ball league. Gallup's, second year removed from that ACL. That's usually when you start to see that explosiveness come back. Before that, he was kind of our deep threat. He's the guy that got up the field, made the big plays, went up in traffic. Brandin Cooks, he's not going to be making the plays in traffic, but he also is best when he's running deep, stretching the field, getting deep, vertical. So I think that they can kind of eat into each other's workload a little bit. And then Jalen Tolbert, he's the guy that I think could be a little bit of a sleeper this year. Of course, it's coach speak. We already talked about it, but he's been one of the most impressive players out of camp. They're saying he's by far the most improved player from last year to this year. Remember last year, for those in Dynasty Leagues, he kind of got a little bit of hype in the preseason. I ended up kind of sneaking into the back of the first round and then just basically disappeared last year. So I think, we got way too excited last year. I think we just kind of fell into he's in the Cowboys offense. There's nobody there. Dak's going to be going, but forgot that he was, not a first round rookie receiver and needed some time to develop. So outside of CeeDee, I'm not making it a huge priority to grab any of these guys, but if they fall to me, like where they're going mid rounds to late rounds, so you can get good value on them. I'm fine grabbing them there. Like, I think I just grabbed Gallup in like the 14th round of like a best ball league. And like, that's perfect. Throw him on the bench there and just kind of wait for those weeks where he does catch 1 or 2 deep balls, goes for 120 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah. I mean, all of these guys can actually stretch the field, which is pretty amazing. I mean, I know Lamb, is kind of their, I guess between these three ends up becoming like the shorter target guy. But I mean, his, yards per reception was 14.9. Cooks last year, and not with Dallas, but 18 and a half, and Cooks was a 22. Yeah. I mean, these are all pretty good numbers. So all of these guys can stretch the field, and they're all
that wants to run the ball, apparently.
Yeah, right. Oh, hey, look, maybe they're just going to send them all deep and then just run it.
Yeah,
I don't
maybe.
know. Who knows? All right, let's finish off here with the tight end room, and different looking room. No Dalton Schultz, Jake Ferguson, Luke Schoonmaker, and Peyton Hendershot. Your guess is as good as mine about who's going to step up here. Any of them? Do we care?
So the guy that I want in this group right now is probably going to be Ferguson. I think it's risky betting on a rookie tight end to come in and produce for fantasy, even if he is a second round rookie like Schoonmaker was this year, who I do like for dynasty leagues, but I do think he's more of like a year 2, year 3 breakout type guy. But Ferguson, they forget, we invested, I believe, like a 3rd round pick in him last year. He kind of showed some flashes playing behind Schultz there. Hendershot was kind of weirdly like a little bit of our red zone target at the end. I think he had like 3 or 4 touchdowns. Ferguson and Hendershot kind of both combined for 3 to 4 touchdowns last year, caught 30 of 38 total targets. So you basically have those two as like the main guys I see stepping in, taking over the receiving role this year. Dalton Schultz leaving, that leaves 89 targets up for grab just at the tight end position. Obviously, I think Cooks is going to siphon off some of those, but that does still leave probably 100 to 120 tight end targets up for grab there. Last year, they had like 128 total tight end targets. So drop that down to 110 maybe, but that's still, somebody's got to step up and take those receptions. I'm guessing at this point, I'm going to go with Ferguson.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Probably Ferguson is going to be the main tight end for this team, but they're not being drafted in fantasy. Like, they're not interesting enough. But yeah, I mean, waiver wire ad possibly throughout the season at best is what.
See who pops. I mean, Dak is traditionally really like to lean heavy on a tight end, so I do think one of these guys is going to be fantasy relevant. I don't think we're going to know who that is till week 2 or 3 of the season, and by that point, it maybe somebody's already scooped them.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, they brought in Cook, so that's going to take, quite a few targets away from that. And honestly, even the little gadget, Deuce Vaughn, like maybe he becomes just more involved in that like underneath route type of thing, and that's what they brought him in for. We will see. So, all right, that is it for the Dallas Cowboys team preview. Want to thank you for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we will check you later.
Peace.